Cheers. Who's drinking? Who's sipping? What are we doing? Is there anything in our hands?
I have work this morning.
I got coffee. I got a double espresso from the wonderful Four Seasons.
I thought you said dumpling. Having said that, welcome to this edition of Road Trippin with RJ and Channing. I'm your host, Allie Clifton, and the one and only joining us, that's Richard. He's Channing, drinking his dumpling espresso. The man who does all the things, host of Old Man and the Three, Mind the Game Pod, ESPN analyst. And I actually feel like he's been trending, maybe it's just on my Twitter feed, for what seems like the last 96 hours straight. The one and only JJ Redick is joining us. Y'all know we're a part of the fam. Here we are.
Hey, y'all.
I don't know.
I am drinking my beautiful BMW branded water right now.
Oh, my gracious.
Is that a thing?
Apparently it's a thing. It's delicious.
Do you drive
it's
a
got
BMW?
everything. Not currently.
With that many buttons down, you look like a BMW guy.
I was about to say, wait, who started the mini buttons down thing? Was it
Richard.
JJ? And then Richard took
Richard,
it?
for sure.
That's how it went. That's how the world sees it. That's, and that's, perception is reality.
Right.
No, what I did in very similar to this podcast, we paved the way for JJ. So I paved the way for JJ to be allowed. Like, if everybody right now in the world would be like, what the fuck is JJ wearing? But because they know me and how I've represented that kind of style, that swag, it becomes socially acceptable.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's an homage to you, Richard.
Oh, see what you did there.
Homage.
Yeah.
That's when we have our merch is
everybody go pick up our merch
at
Homage. I'm at Homage.
We'll send you a sweatshirt, JJ. Very comfortable.
Oh, I have some gear. Richard already sent me the cute little NBA Jam shirt you guys have.
Yeah, just the best. Super comfy.
Can you do that one more time, JJ?
Just this?
For the do that one more time. Yeah, there you go.
What is happening?
You can't touch your elbows behind your back, right? It's impossible.
Can you touch your elbows in front of can you touch them in front? Because most men can't.
Yeah.
What?
Why would you not be able to do that?
Because your biceps are so big.
Okay. That's none of us. That's none of us.
Yeah.
That's none of us. Oh, that's fair. All right, let's dive in. Can we address, Channing used to start all of our episodes this way. What was your line, Channing? Let's ask the question that everyone wants to know.
Oh, man, Jamal Murray. My man threw his little tantrum. Is he going to get a game?
Question? Is that the question everyone wants to know?
That's my question. That's my question. Because I was more like, if you're going to get beat like that, and the way that Minnesota was talking shit and just picking him up full court, and then you go and throw a towel, then you go and throw a heat pack, then you do the money sign, then, people miss that part where when that kind of got out of hand, I think in the second quarter, basically. He also hit somebody in the head that nobody cares about because it was whatever. But I'm just curious, does he get a game? I think he does. That's just me.
I think he gets a game, but at the very least, he's getting a fine, a hefty fine.
Oh, yeah, hefty fine.
Hefty fine. Richard, you disagree with us, I feel like.
I don't think he gets suspended. I think he gets a very large fine. I think he gets a very, very large fine. It's like you go back and look at, again, Draymond said, like, people just want to throw out suspensions, blah, blah. Draymond has a history of behavior. So when he has a history. He has chapter after chapter, multiple books. He's got a Lord of the Rings series of incidents that have happened, right? So you understand why people jump to that. Jamal's never been in trouble. He's never had an issue. Like, no one, and I'm not saying that condones his behavior. I'm saying that the league takes all of that into account, right? The league takes that into account, as we all know. So we really think, because he can easily say that, like, he can make up something. I don't know. And nothing is excusing his behavior.
Richard, if it was you, what would be your excuse for not only throwing a towel and then grabbing the heat pack that the towel was underneath?
What I'm saying is that, I try to throw the towel to the ball boy. And then the other one, I jumped up and I was just yelling and it slipped out of my hands. That's the story. My point is this, though, Jack. My point is this.
Welcome to 2024. There are cameras everywhere. No one's going to believe that story.
You guys have been on the bench with the heat packs before.
I've never seen a heat pack on the floor.
How those things are heavy, man. You don't just accidentally throw them 25 feet in the air.
I thought it just went behind the ref, and then they highlighted it as it skidded.
That shit went
on the court.
Those things are. But
that's literally. It's just like what Finch said. It's like the logical. There's no one in the stands throwing a heat pack.
Well, I don't think they don't know, because again, players could jump up really quick and get slide. So the referee, Mark Davis, didn't know what happened behind him. Right? Like how, someone threw that. You don't know. Anyways, my only thing is he shouldn't get suspended for a game. I think he should get, you want to fine him $75K for his behavior in that game. Mike Malone should have been thrown out of the game. Mike Malone for sure. He should have been, he was trying to get thrown out of the game. He knew he could feel what was going on. The whole arena could. Everybody that watched it on
America
TV,
could see what was going on.
He was like, "Oh, I'm going to use this as a motivation," and I'm not like. And Mark Davis was like, "No, you are going to sit here and you are going to take every drop of this ass whipping. Get him back, make him coach, because you can't do that twice. You have a one time in a game to do that, and then they kick you out." So Mark Davis was like, "No, sir, you will not be excused from this game. You are going to go over there and you are going to take this ass whipping."
Not to, I was curious about Minnesota, in their defense, and were they going to be able to, guard all these different actions? And I'm even triple impressed about, how they just take, I can't remember Jokic getting his shot blocked 2, 3, 4 times in one possession by 2 or 3 different guys. Usually he dominates. Naz Reid was killing him for a second. Obviously, Cat had him for a little bit, stayed out of foul trouble, but I don't know if I've ever seen a team just dismantle an offense like that. It is wild watching the viciousness of how they guard each person with no regard for life. They're just nope, you're not going to run any. And then Aaron Gordon, who actually had a great game, they were just yep, we're living. You got 15 points, good for you.
Is this the best defense you guys have seen?
Oof. I mean, the Warriors.
I think it's hard.
Crazy.
It's hard to compare because teams played differently. Even back in 2015, right? There's a Warriors team. Teams play differently now. You can't. It's hard to say the 90s Knicks teams. Well, everybody was crowded around in the paint. You know what I mean? There wasn't spacing. I think for what I would consider the modern NBA, which is probably just in the last 3 to 5 years, it's by far the best defense. But it's not just that it's the best defense collectively. They have great individual defenders. Think about Jamal Murray getting guarded by Jaden McDaniels and then Nickeil Alexander-Walker, basically a clone defensively, comes in off the bench, right?
That sucks.
They match up well because Denver's advantage versus a lot of teams is playing big with Gordon and Jokic. All of a sudden, I don't know, Gobert missed last night, but you still have Naz Reid, you still have Cat, Kyle Anderson's long. They have size at nearly every position. So it's a bad matchup.
No, is that no? What? And this is the other thing.
Wow.
Those three Doberman pinchers that they have over there, because you include Anthony Edwards.
Right.
And again, those two, their specialty is defense. His is an added piece to his already crazy game. But those 3 dudes were guarding Kevin Durant. They were guarding Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. And with all respect to my guy, Jamal Murray, he is not on the tier quite yet of Bradley Beal. Or no, he's above Bradley Beal, of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. So that's an easier assignment for all 3 of them. Right? If you've been guarding Devin Booker for a series and now you got to guard Jamal Murray, now there's different complexities to their game, but they're locked in defensively. Those dudes are locked in. But yes, is this the best defensive team? Yes, because they have 3 elite frontline defenders. They have maybe the best backline defender. We talk about Drew Holiday and what, him leaving Milwaukee, what that did, even though they have great size.
We saw what that did.
We saw with that, losing that frontline defense. You see how important it is to the Boston Celtics with him and Derek White, right? You have those type of defenders in your front line and a monster defensive player of the year level guy in your back line, you get the shit you saw yesterday.
Real quick, I want to interject. I don't necessarily think it's easier than guarding easy by maybe who Bradley or who Devin Booker and who Kevin Durant have been in their careers versus Jamal Murray in terms of accolades and in terms of, you know, they're high volume scorers that have been super efficient. When I think of guarding Jamal Murray, one of the challenges is when he gives the ball up.
Oh,
The Spanoulis action, right, where he cuts down the middle of the paint, gets the rub screen from Gordon, comes back off the dribble handoff. They set it up a million different ways. Navigating through that off the ball and then not allowing enough separation for Murray to come off that and operate in space and at a comfort level, that is a huge challenge. And Booker and Durant are not running that type of action. So it's the off-ball stuff that I think not allowing separation when they get into all their split actions, when they get into the Spanoulis action, when they get into their delay action where they're setting back screens and they're playing off movement, that is a huge challenge to me. And so far, those guys have risen to the challenge and then some.
Let me ask you guys this too, because obviously, as we know, this has not just happened overnight. This is something that's been in effect for a minute now in terms of coming to this number one defensive stand that Minnesota has carried and played with and what we're seeing here early in this series specifically. But you're doing it without a 3-time defensive player of the year. You don't miss a beat. You give Denver through the first 2 quarters their largest halftime deficit in the playoffs at 30 plus. How much of this also is about, and Rich, we've talked about this a little bit over the last couple of days when we were talking about this series specifically, just the mentality and the belief of like, we don't fear you. The no fear in facing the defending champs, because they look as if they don't even see them over there.
It's kind of
like
funny.
No disrespect, but it is.
Oh, there's a lot of disrespect.
I mean it from my standpoint.
I know.
But
oh, sorry.
How much of that simply plays into this as well? Because to demolish them as they did last night without Rudy, I mean, did not miss a step.
Well, I think number one person who doesn't get it, I think the 2 people who don't get enough credit, and I think Mike Conley Jr. does not get enough credit, right? He's the smallest guy on the court, but he's still just everywhere, controlling a lot of that. I mean, it's consistency and making sure guys are getting to the right spots. And then Naz Reid is a problem. Like, Naz Reid could start on a lot of teams in the NBA. And so when you put him in those situations where he's used to like dealing, if Cat is not playing, he's balling out. If Gobert is not coming, he's balling out. And then Slow-Mo came in, and that's another ball handler. So that's a problem when you have 4 or 5 ball handlers. Who is Jokic guarding, right? He was guarding Jaden McDaniels for a second, and Jaden's like, well, hold on now. Like, I'm not a slouch either. I'm just going to drive and attack the rim and create opportunities. So, like, the pressure is on both sides. They can't get in a rhythm offensively. They're taking tough shots. And then you have 4 guys getting out and running and playing unselfish basketball. How do they match up? How do they get to their defensive matchups when each dude is like going downhill? In Denver, necessarily, I think they figured Jokic is good and Aaron Gordon is good, but like Ant is better than KCP. We feel like we can get downhill and get to the paint. If we can get paint touches, we can set our defense up. And then we got them 2 Doberman Pinschers that are going to pick Jamal up 94 feet every single time. And to me, that's like when teams are able, especially good defensive teams, if you can get something in a paint or a layup or a floater and get your defense set, it makes teams, it gets frustrating. It's how we won in 16. We said, hey, unless you got a butt-naked jumper, we got to take this bitch to the rack like we're shooting outside. It's the only way to slow them down. And you just start compounding that. And man, I'm impressed with like the others for Minnesota of just not only lifting karl-Anthony Towns up and like allowing him to be himself, which is, I think, the best version of that I've seen in a while. But also like allowing Slow-Mo to do his thing, allowing Naz Reid to do his thing. And like, their chemistry, we talk about OKC's chemistry, but Minnesota's chemistry looks crazy right now.
They, in my opinion, there's 2 things. One, when you talk about accepting your role, but accepting your role with enthusiasm, we talk about like you can accept the role, but will you accept it with enthusiasm? And every single one down their line defensively currently right now, they have hung their hat on their defense. So yes, when Rudy goes out, you got Nas. He's a little bit more mobile. He's a little bit this. Yeah, obviously he's not Rudy,
nice.
But what I'm saying though, he's still let's say an above average defensive player in that position, right? With his mobility and with the teammates around him in the system, he is an above average defender for that position, especially when he's a backup or if he started, right? So I look at it from a standpoint of like these guys, Rudy's out and they're like, we're still hanging our hat on our defense. We're still hanging our hat on our defense. And then our offense then falls in line. But I think the confidence that they are playing with is in an organization, they truly believe that they have a young superstar, a Michael Jordan.
Just say it. Yeah, there we go, Richard.
So they believe that they have a savior. They believe that they have a savior on their team. And when you walk into a series, JJ, when Dwight was at his peak, right? When Dwight was at his peak, and it's like, oh, we have someone that is different than everyone else. And there's a level of confidence that comes with that. And same with, they believe that they have the best player in the series. That's what they believe on their bench, and the players in that huddle. They know Jokic might be the MVP. They know Jokic is that dude, but they believe that, we have Anthony Edwards. Like we have that guy. We can go win anything. And they're going out there and playing like it.
The fearlessness factor, I think it starts with him, and he set the tone in that Phoenix series. He set the tone for the rest, whatever their playoff run, he set the tone, and they follow that. We've discussed this with Legler. We discussed this on Monday on the Old Man of the Three Things. There's a maturity with Anthony Edwards that you don't often see, just in terms of the way that he carries himself. There's a maturity in his game, and I just, the attitude that he approaches these games with, that to me feeds down the system. And certainly Channing, you brought up Mike Conley. There's leadership there, right? There's leadership with Kyle Anderson. They have other leaders, but the attitude, it is a reflection of Anthony Edwards. In terms of the defense, I think it's important to note the way that Denver plays, particularly after made baskets, right? When they're not getting stops. Jamal Murray brings the ball up, okay? They are picking him up essentially full court, right? He is either getting sped up or he's getting disrupted. So their half-court offense is not functioning correctly, and they can put those two Doberman pinchers on him, right? They can just, hey, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, right? So I think if I'm looking for adjustments from the Nuggets, well, who else can bring the ball up? Think about Jalen Brunson in that Philadelphia 76er series, where early on, it's Kelly Oubre, it's Nick Batum harassing him 80, 90 feet down the court. What does he do after that? Hey, you take it up, Dante. You take it up, Josh. He allows those guys to take it up. There's less of a toll on him. They can get into their offense quicker. So if you're the Nuggets, who's the one guy? It's not going to be Michael Porter Jr. It's probably not going to be KCP. It's probably Aaron Gordon, particularly when Gobert comes back. You're telling me Karl-Anthony Towns is going to go pick up Aaron Gordon after a made basket at 80 feet? I just don't see it. Yeah. So and Aaron Gordon's capable of doing it. So that potentially is an adjustment to me, is you take some of the pressure and the stress in the backcourt off of Jamal Murray, you get him off the ball, you get him moving off rub screens. Now all of a sudden he can be more dynamic.
The one thing to your point, even if they become your semi backcourt, right? Jokic is always going to take the ball out fast and set the moment.
Yeah.
But it's like Aaron Gordon, you go throw it into Jamal, set a screen, get him open, get him free. Jamal, if they're still up there, throw it back to Aaron. We're going to run it up, and that's how we're going to dribble it up. So it's just like putting them to your point, putting both those guys back there gives them that option for most. Give them that option. One, he gets set up for a screen, and Jamal, if they're attack, and you can relieve that pressure. But I think Jamal, that situation was, I've never seen him that frustrated. And Jamal, that's the thing that keeps him cool. That's what makes Jamal Murray special. And we saw them come back from down 3-1 multiple times. They get to a conference finals, 2 years of injury, and the first year back, they win a championship, and he averages 25 points a game in the NBA Finals. that his energy has always been calm through the highest, most intense levels. And in round 2, game 2, he is not Jamal Murray. We have not seen that in 500 games or 400 games he's played. And that's what was impressive about their defense, that you can take one of the calmest, coolest people that is one of those dudes and literally have him rattled in the second quarter.
Okay, so to put a bow on this conversation, I'll ask you this. So they haven't trailed in a series since 2022. And when you look at the last couple of postseasons, would this be the most adversity Denver has faced when you speak of that with Jamal Murray and just how rattled you have seen him, or the frustration that you see? And can Denver still win?
I asked Ish Smith yesterday. He was on our X Live show, and he was like, yeah. He was like, by far. Because
they can win?
Like, no. He's Ish is a great dude, right? So, of course, he thinks his boys can win. He wanted to chip with them. But he was like, and JJ said it, it's not a good matchup, right? Because, and to get back to what Richard said, if Aaron Gordon brings the ball up and Gobert goes out the game, Kyle Anderson will pick him up full court. Like, that's a problem. Naz Reid will pick him up full court. So, yes, that'll work when Gobert's in the game. But when they put those 5 fluid players out there, it's going to be, that's a lot, right? And then again, you're getting one action. You're starting the clock at 13, 14. You might get one action where Denver's used to wearing you down offensively. But I don't think that they could do it. I think they may steal game 3. But then Minnesota says, okay, let's turn this back on. And then my other question to them is, we had this conversation. After watching what you've seen, does this move Minnesota up as your favorite coming out of the West? And if Boston isn't fully healthy, what does that do versus them? Those are my questions. Because this is what Minnesota has is different. And like, obviously I'm a prisoner of the present, but they are nice. What is it? Prisoner of the present? Or what do you say?
Prisoner of the moment.
There we go.
Prisoner of the moment. Perfect, Channing. You said it perfect. It was outstanding.
But you know what?
Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
We'll add that to the sayings list. Prisoner of the present.
That actually sounds better than prisoner of the moment. Prisoner of the present.
Sometimes I'm
it sounded like that basketball term JJ was referring to, Spadipolis or something. Like what?
Spanulis.
He
was Vasilis Spanulis. He was a player for Greece.
You know the thing that I can't stand about when you say the term and some of your terminology, you say it so matter of fact, like everyone should know it.
No,
it's why I explained it. It's why I explained it.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I was like, the Spanulis where you did it, and it's just like,
you know what's funny is
I didn't play. I didn't play for the team. We never had any interaction. I don't know. You're like, it's a simple Spinula cut. I was like, that's not what we called it, right?
Yeah,
and so it's just, I've never heard that on my 17 years. I didn't interact with Spicoli.
I actually, it's part of.
There was a Spicoli cut.
It's you sound like Coach K after the 2006 semifinal game in the World Championship when he couldn't even say the guy's name.
Yeah,
interesting.
Spicoli.
Spinola's action is going to be covered tomorrow on Mind the Game, by the way. To answer your
well played. We are going to get to that in a second, JJ. So continue your
question, Allie.
Thank you.
Because RJ can sort of derail these conversations. I've seen it happen before. The adversity question, yes. It's absolutely the most adversity they've faced in the last 2 postseasons. And we've talked about this I probably a half a dozen times on the Old Man of the Three. Even going back to last year, post-finals, KCP was on. He talked about the Timberwolves being a tough matchup, potentially as tough of a matchup as they saw throughout their run. No Naz Reid, no Jaden McDaniels, right? We did a whole thing last week on this for 20 minutes about this matchup. To me, it's just not a good matchup for the Nuggets. It's not. And it doesn't mean they can't win the series. But for them to win the series, Jamal Murray has to be the version of Jamal Murray that we saw in the playoffs. They have to figure out ways to get him in rhythm and in space and not be harassed. And then Jokic has to be efficient, scoring the basketball. But, it seems like they played 4 games think about this. They played 4 games this year. They split the series 2-2. Jokic played in all the games. And Cat missed a couple games. Gobert missed 1 game. They started Kyle Anderson on Jokic. It didn't matter. There was one game that every team was healthy. Nobody was missing. Murray missed a game. Didn't matter. The Minnesota Timberwolves were the team that Jokic averaged the least amount of assists against. He only averaged 4 assists a game against the Timberwolves in the regular season.
That's a crazy
in 4
stat.
games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's a crazy stat.
Again, it goes back to the advantages that the Nuggets create. It's like clockwork. It's reads. The Timberwolves' size can counter a lot of those things. They can. Gordon in the dunker spot. Well, a lot of times that's against a guy either his size or someone smaller. Now it's someone that's bigger than him. Yep. You know, Gobert's back there just roaming. You have multiple defenders at every position on the wing. With length.
It's the layers of defense. And I think you tweeted about it, JJ, because in some sort of fashion over the weekend after game 1, because after watching it in the Lakers series, obviously game after game after game, that dunker spot was open almost every single possession. And you look at it now and it can barely get to Ant. And then there was a couple of possessions down the stretch where they're just looking to lob it up to Joker. And it's just not there. It's simply not there.
They're not. They're having to work too hard, but they can still win the series, right? Like you don't count out a champion. Like they can still. Would I bet on them to win the series? Not currently, but they are not. To JJ's point, they're a terrible.
If you ask me right now, who do you think is going to win this series? I would say the Timberwolves. They're down 2. They're down 2-0, and they won 2 games on the road to start the series. I know how playoffs work, but
hey, that trip is hard, right? You go on that airplane like, shit, do we want to come back here for that game 5? Like,
they can still come back. They can still come back.
They can still come back. They can still come back. All right.
I'll tell you what, Friday night in Minnesota, that is going to be a lit atmosphere. Richard, you don't have that game, do you?
No,
you have the
Cleveland-Boston. I'm going Cleveland-Boston. Where are you going?
I have both Indy games.
Oh,
I pleaded for game 3 in Minnesota. I pleaded for it.
Indy's beautiful this time of year.
I've got a round on Saturday at Crooked Stick. I got a round on Saturday at Crooked Stick. It's all good.
Okay, before we transition to the Indy Pacers series, I thought this is where Channing and I, my partner, were going to really align at the top of the show, and we did not. We just did not connect. I threw the lob, and you missed the bunny. Thank you.
I'm not a lob guy. Know your personnel.
I know. KYP, damn it. Having said that, JJ, you brought up Mind the Game. So before we get into hard X's and O's with Knicks and Pacers, I just have to ask. I'm not going to ask you if you're going to coach. I'm not going to ask you if you're going to be the next coach for whatever franchise is available. But I do like listening to you and obviously listening to your Mind the Game pods. Like, what is it about coaching that intrigues you? What is it you love about
It's a great question, Allison.
Do you want to go through my psychoanalysis?
Yes.
I would love to. I would love
honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I have to on subfrequent occasions have to go through his psychoanalysis as he has to go through mine. So I would love for him to share.
I feel like that's part of our friendship. Is
that you're both psycho?
You share in your craziness.
Is that we
association?
Whatever you want to call it, dude.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it.
Acquaintanceship.
Partnership. Coaching. Look, I am currently a broadcaster and a podcast host of multiple podcasts, and really just enjoying those things. Very fortunate to be doing this. The coaching thing. Channing and RJ, I would guess that there's a part of you, and it's a very, very small part of me that misses playing, like actually playing basketball, right? There's a small part of me that misses shooting a basketball or coming off a screen and shooting. But it's a small part of me. What I really miss is the juice. I miss the action. I miss the competition. I miss leadership. I miss being on a team, like in a locker room, like physically in a locker room after winning a road game. Like you miss that stuff. There is a high that you get as an athlete that goes beyond passing and shooting and dribbling And Richard never took charges. Taking a charge or dunking a basketball.
Only
There's
in
a
fourth
high
quarters
you
in
get.
playoffs. Only in fourth quarter in playoffs.
True. I fucking hate that. That's the truth.
Those are all these little moments of actual gameplay. It's the other moments that I feel like we all miss as ex-athletes, right? And the part about coaching in general is a very general statement, is like the things that I miss and the things that I love doing, that involves coaching. That all is part of coaching. That's all.
I'd love to coach too, but I don't have no patience. Oh, I don't have no patience. Dude,
I have that, JJ?
What'd you say, Allie?
Patience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've seen him coach his 8-year-old kids. He has zero patience. He told a kid to shut the fuck up the other day.
You know, I had to retire from coaching the travel team. Like,
why is that?
Why?
Because we have 5 travel tournaments this spring, and I have games every single weekend. So I'm going to miss every Friday practice before the games. So Monday would be the only day I could go to, and I just
JJ, what's your level of patience for 9-year-olds?
A 7. I would say a 7.
Yeah, I've heard it's pretty good.
7.
We run in the same circles. I heard JJ's pretty good.
A 7.
Have you ever been thrown out of a game?
Dude,
I'm just asking a question. This is an interview. You're our guest. You're the first guest on.
It was an unwarranted ejection. I did not. I never got into it with any referee.
I was just asking.
The referee had called a couple of questionable travel calls on our kids.
Okay, Jamal Murray.
Late in the game, and it was the last 2 minutes, so we could press.
Oh.
And a kid on the other team, they broke the press. They threw it over the top, and he caught the ball at like the hash mark, 35 feet, and he started running with the basketball. And I said, "Are you seriously not going to call that a travel?" And he gave me a technical. And I just asked him, "Did you seriously just give me a technical?" And he threw me out of the game for that. There was no curse words. I didn't even raise my voice. I didn't step to him.
That's funny.
I just was like, "What?" I gave him this look. Like, thumbnail this.
I'm going to be really.
His crew love their thumbnails.
I don't
having said that, are you a yeller?
A yeller?
Yeah.
When you need to be, you have to have some level of command. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You
got to
9-year-olds.
At certain points, you got it.
They do that. Hey, can we switch though really quickly because we're talking about kids? Rudy Gobert and Allie, I apologize if you were already going to go there. But Rudy Gobert.
Dude,
No.
We had the biggest discussion at the Warner.
Afraid.
No, don't be afraid.
Listen, we know this. All three of us are dads. All three of us there for the kids, right? But it has been a very interesting thing watching this conversation go on. It's been a very interesting thing watching this go on in different circles, and people have different thoughts and ideas. Like, people think it's beautiful, right? One of my friends from back home was like, "Oh, I think it's awesome." Trico, you guys, some of you guys know Trico. It's like, "Oh, I think it's awesome. I think it's beautiful. I think that, like, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, I don't care what you do. If I was giving birth, I would want you there. And I was like, okay, that's fair. That's good to hear your perspective. I've heard different perspectives. And I'm curious to hear other perspectives before I give mine, because I also gave some contingencies on it. And I was like, look, if it's January, I'll miss a game. If
you did miss a game.
I unfortunately, I was the inducement of labor took too long. Right, damn it, Phoenix. Because I had an 82 game streak going on, but I was still one of the people that cared about that. But playoffs, okay, what's the situation? And then I gave a game 7, and I said that if it's a game 7 situation, there's a game 7 of either the finals or whatever, you don't miss that. This one is permissible, but I want to make sure people understand that there is context and situations in which you don't miss those games. The quarterback can't miss the Super Bowl because his baby's being born. The quarterback can't miss the Super Bowl.
Does like the layer of children, like the second or third child factor?
No. Here's what we said. What time was the baby born? Right? What time was the baby born? Anything before 12? Hey, get that. Hey, Finchy, get the jet ready, put the baby, bow, thank you, well, give it back, go hoop, right? Anything after that, you're not going to make it. I get it. But like, you should be there. But then if the baby's born 8, 9, 10, them little 2 hours, that's good. Now you win. You got 3 days. You're good. Then go fly back and go see it.
Really quickly, JJ. Really quickly, JJ. Really quickly. We are all, just to be very clear, and I'm going to look, we are all saying this based off full 100% health of the baby and the mother.
Oh, for sure.
We don't know context. We don't know why it's extended. We don't, and nor is it any of our business, or do we care? We are just saying hypothetically 100% health. What are your thoughts, JJ?
What are my thoughts?
Yeah.
Here's the thing about this. I
his kid's birthday.
I actually don't have an opinion on this because
What?
I don't. Because it is a deeply personal decision based on your relationship with your significant other, your own personal preference towards how important that moment, skin-to-skin contact. Come on, guys. We've all been there. Kai on my chest.
Skin is
Don't ever do that again. And let me express this. What I'm asking,
I get it, JJ. I get it.
If Kai's beautiful birth was in June and it's the NBA Finals and it's Game 7, and what do you do in that moment?
Am I in the rotation?
I understand regular
season. Yes. You are you, JJ. You are you.
He doesn't want to give this answer. He doesn't want to give the answer. I can see a person dodging bullets when.
No, I think if it's me, I would play. But that's that's not.
You would play?
Yeah, I would play.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Even if it was your first child?
Yeah, I would play. But I didn't have to make that decision. But I get how difficult it is. I get it.
All right, let's talk about the bagless Pacers.
He tried so hard. He tried so hard to hide his psychosis. He tried so hard.
He tried
so hard. This is a
sorry, Chelsea.
Personal thing. Skin on skin contact. I would play. If he dies,
I would. We never. Luckily, we never had to have that discussion, particularly in the playoffs.
God, he was just he's Rocky Balboa. He's Drago. I will make it. I will be there.
Sad. Fun fact: that did actually happen in y'all's series in 2016 with someone within your travel party. It was a very, very critical piece to the puzzle.
That's what I said. One of my friends was like, "Well." And it was like, well, what if like the baby's due any day and he's about to go on a 4-day road trip? Again, you could go, your water could break 2 days, like at 2 a.m. And, that baby can be born in hours. We all know this. So my thing was, she was like, well, I would expect him not to go. I was like, listen, if I didn't go on the road trip, that baby better be out by the time they come back. They better be out by the time they come back. Or else they're going to look at me like, bro. Because I think people underestimate the responsibility that all of us feel to our teammates. Yes, it is. It is family and teammates, and like relationship, and then teammates. Like they are. When you talk about success in these moments, that's why we're talking about like a brotherhood.
Let's move on. Pacers and Knicks. What are we witnessing with Jalen freaking Brunson?
I got it. I'll go first. Knicks fans were really assaulting me when I said last week, I'm like, he is the best player to put on a Knick uniform since I've been involved in the NBA. And everyone jumped out. Everyone like Melo. I'm like, I'm not disrespecting Melo, but the numbers are undeniable. Like Melo was a legend when he got there and was an established superstar. We're watching that happen with Jalen Brunson. But if you ask me right now, who's the most important player that the Knicks have gotten in the last since I came into the league, it's Jalen Brunson, right? And
was Allen Houston in your?
No, Allen Houston was hurt. Like I showed up, his knee went bad, like in 01, 02, and he was still that dude. But like Brunson is the focal point of this team and has been for 2 years and has drugged them to playoffs. He has dominated playoff series. The dude is different. And he's still young. I'm sorry. He is the best player to put on a Knicks uniform in 20 years. That's who he is. That's what we're watching.
Is he a more, I don't want to say more acceptable, is he a more easy on the eyes James Harden?
What?
Like stylistically, like obviously he gets assists, he leads his team. The other guys kind of, they're great. I think Josh Hart, Dante, OG making great plays, but like they're not all-stars. And he literally wills this team to win every night, and he's almost unstoppable scoring. Gets to the line at will, still even in the playoffs. Stylistically, he reminds me of James, except he has a crazy mid-range.
I don't think James's passing ability was also something that
I know what you're saying. They're different players. I know what he's saying. I know what he's saying. Just in terms of the burden
interpret it
required of being. I mean, I saw something the other day in the first round. If you actually did like his true usage rate, it was 52%. He used over half the possessions in the first round.
That's crazy.
Here's two thoughts, Allie, to answer your question. Number one, I think a lot of this is just Jaylen being wired a certain way, having supreme confidence and belief in himself, working on his craft, getting better. But I would say this. I've been thinking about this for the last few days as it relates to the teams that have made it out of the first round and what are some commonalities that they have. And it's the starkest version of this is with the New York Knicks. They are the perfect cohesion of parts and personalities. To Channing's point, if there was another player on that team with a particular skill set that was redundant to Jaylen and had a different personality than a Josh Hart or a Dante or an Isaiah Hartenstein, does this work as well for Jaylen? Does it work as well for the Knicks? I think not. I think they're the best example of parts and personality working in perfect unison.
I have a question.
Hold on. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No. Even to the point where some of the stuff that we praise the Knicks for, right? Josh Hart and the offensive rebound and the kamikaze fast breaks. Legitimately kamikaze fast breaks.
Oh, that's so funny.
Miles McBride and his ball pressure, right? Mitchell Robinson basically for the last 2 years being like, okay, I'm not an offensive player. I'm just going to grab offensive rebounds and protect the rim. Like they've all bought into these roles. On top of that, Jalen Brunson, I think, was second or third in charges in the NBA this season. So he's the guy that's doing the dirty work too. Like it all just melds and mixes together into this perfect, I don't know, it's like a perfect walnut chocolate chip brownie. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And if you went and looked at every team's roster that has been eliminated so far in the playoffs, you'd be like, well, they have it, and they have it, and it's like, well, no, but the Knicks are a better team because that's how basketball works.
Yeah.
So my question though is, like you say, it's a perfect, like, are you saying the success that he is having? Because I think that there are certain players.
I started with him. It starts with him. I started with him.
No.
Yeah.
I agree. You said it's like it's him, and then they built the perfect thing around them, right? And so you're saying it's his greatness combined with the pieces that they have implemented around him, kind of like he's the Jokic, and then the pieces that they put around Jokic just meld perfectly.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
I'm just helping out.
But it's also, but again, the parts part is the skill sets. The personality parts is the other key piece to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like OG being in a place where maybe 4 years ago he thought he could become Jimmy Butler offensively. He's at a place in his career where he knows exactly who he is, and he's going to do that every fucking night, and he's going to be great at it. That's the personality part that I'm talking about. They have every single guy on that team right now has complete buy-in to their role. That's significant.
I mean, you look at Dante, like only had, 3 at the half and then runs off 24 in the second half. But he's not a chucker. which is crazy. He they keep running the same plays. He's always in his spots. And then when it's his time to make those shots, he does. And the same with Josh Hart. Like at the end of that series with Philly, he looked and it was like, okay, I'm open. I got to shoot this. Like Josh isn't a bad offensive player. He just knows that's not what is needed at times until it is. And then he's like, okay, I'm comfortable shooting this because y'all passed to me and I'm open. Like think about game 1 in Philly in New York when Josh went crazy. It was like, hey, we're going to make somebody else beat us. And Josh said, okay, I could do this, but this is not what the team needs every single night. Like I'm going to shoot when I'm open, but most of the time I'm looking for Brunson.
Bigger picture, where is Jalen Brunson on your point guard list in the NBA?
Where does JJ, where do you have him ranking in point guards in the league currently right now?
Is he 2?
I don't know what a point guard is.
Fair.
True.
Rich, give the others that you have on your list.
I would say this. I'll put it this way. We did positionless this year for first team All NBA, right?
Yeah.
If we had done positions, I would have had Shea and Luka as first team. Jalen would have been the first guard on the second team. And I don't think there's anybody that there's not would it have been? No, it would have been Jalen. I had him fifth I had him fifth in MVP. I know I had him top 5 in MVP. I swapped him and Giannis for first team, and I laid out my argument why, and I don't want to go back into it, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought Jaylen Brunson was the best player in the Eastern Conference this year, and I'm just going to be frank. Like you look at like how much his burden every single night is a lot. And he comes out there and every night you're like, is he going to get another 40? Damn, he just did. And they won. And he's making big plays. And I've just been impressed. And I'm kind of excited that a guy whose skill set is so high, whose game is kind of not the norm, right? He's not long and lanky like SGA. He's not tall and big like Luka, but he's almost unguardable, right? It's like, what do you do? How do you guard him? You double team him, his teammates make plays. You guard him one-on-one, and he's chewing your guards up. He gets to the line. He puts, I think in the first quarter, they had like 2 or 3 players already had 2 fouls, right? I think he had drawn 5 to 7 fouls just from himself. And so it's like, it's hard to like not appreciate and love the guy for being so effective and not usually being like the norm. He's not your 6'9" Paul George prototype. He's, what is he, like 6'3" and stocky?
You know what's wild? There's one particular part about his game that has always been wild to me. So he obviously, this is how I describe Jalen off the dribble. Jalen, he has a bunch of different moves and counters, whether it's through the head, the shoulders, the dribble, when he has a live dribble to get you off balance. He's never off balance. Then when he gets to his pivot game, it's all to get you off balance. He's never off balance. But the one little quirky thing that it's kind of unimaginable. And I just thought of this because you brought up the size thing. So Jalen, when he gets to his reverse pivot fall away, right, as a left-handed player who's not particularly big, you would think he would turn this way, away from the defense, right? So the left hand is on the other side of the defense, right? He turns the other way. And so his left hand is in front of the defense and he still gets the shot off.
It's crazy.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
It is something that you can't.
Lefties are different. Lefties are different.
Lefties are very different.
Lefties are different. And I don't, that doesn't explain it, but just he's spinning the direction that feels most comfortable for him. And weirdly, it throws off the defenders, right? Like you would think he would do that. But again, lefties, the way they move, shift, pivot, it just, to your point, he's never off balance and he has multiple layers. He can get you off balance with his shiftiness. He can get you off balance with his pump fake. He always goes away from the screen. He always goes away from the screen. So it's just like his whole 5 levels of his game are to get you off balance, and it only takes one of them for you to be fucked.
All right. I hate to say it, but Rich has to run. And so having said that, we obviously have two other series that haven't started as we are recording this right now, Cleveland, Boston, and OKC, Dallas. So before we close out this episode, if we could really quick, can you give me a hot take for both of those series? Channing, we'll start with you. You can pick one. You can do both.
Cleveland, Boston series goes 7. I like Cleveland's size. I think this is a great test, right? Like Cleveland struggles with physicality, and Orlando, for those young boys, they are going to be dangerous for a lot of years. I think it showed them we got to step up our physicality and really kind of dive into who we are and use our length. And I think if they can get Boston to shoot bad, like contested twos and limit their threes, I think it could help. And also Porzingis not being in there also doesn't help either. So I think Cleveland, I'm giving them a little credit here. I'm pumped for the OKC. I think that's on paper. I think it's a great matchup. Coaching styles, your superstars. You have 2 MVP candidates, Kyrie, Jalen Williams. Then you have like, who is Lou Dort going to guard, right? You have kind of stuff like that, and just length, size. It has everything to be amazing.
She said a quick take.
That was a quick take.
Richard, enthusiasm. Finish the episode strong, please.
No, a hot take.
Quickly.
I don't know.
Wait, you're talking shit about me.
And that was still faster than the shit you just went down.
Nope.
You don't have a hot take.
I think both series. I think Boston, unless Cleveland starts hitting threes, which they did not in that series, if they can't maintain the 3-point line against Boston, I think it could get ugly quick. I think if Miami can win one, I think Cleveland can win 2, but I don't think it going 7. And I think the other one, I think that's one of those series where it's just like it's a toss up, right? The way Dallas is playing right now, OKC, their level of confidence is as high as anybody in this league, and so to see that and to see the symmetry that's going on between Luka and Kyrie, how they're learning how to pick up the slack for the other one, and just, you know, Luka's never had a teammate, in my opinion, that he was truly impressed with, because he's a prodigy. Luka's a prodigy. He's a phenom. He's been this way since he was 15, 16 years old. He sees the game differently. And I think Kyrie is one of those people that he's like, oh, you're just like me.
Yeah, that white sage got his ass. Came and booped him with the stick.
I don't really have a hot take. I think I would agree with Richard that there is an inherent math problem for Cleveland, and potentially, if they go target hunting, a size problem for Cleveland. And then particularly if Jared Allen can't, if he can't play. And my only thought on the other series is I feel like it'll be one of those series where we do see maybe a couple. I expect it to go 6 or 7. I think it's going to be a fantastic series, but it wouldn't surprise me if there were a couple blowouts where we see some 3-point shooting variance on one side or the other,
like the Orlando Cleveland series,
or
For sure.
or the Clippers Dallas series.
Yeah.
Fair.
That's all I got.
All right, love you guys.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks, y'all. I'm gonna go button up my shirt.
Please, ill.